Hi guys, I am Anita Leon and today we're going to talk about tips to teach direct object, indirect object and oblique object. If you are English teacher, these tips will give you some ideas to teach on an easy way about this. So let's start. Direct object. I prepared two tips to teach about direct object. The first is direct object answers the questions what or whom. And the second tip is that direct object usually is followed by the verb. Examples. First example is Eduardo is raising the rent. What's the subject in this sentence? Eduardo. What's the verb? Is raising. And what's the question? The question is Eduardo is raising what? The answer will be the rent. So the direct object will be the rent. Second sentence says they served ice cream for dessert. So what's the subject? They. What's the verb? Served. And what's the answer of the question? Well, they served what? They served ice cream. So the answer, ice cream, will be the direct object. And finally, the next sentence is Daniel gave Susan a new car. What's the subject? Daniel. What's the verb? Gave. And what's the direct object? Well, let's answer the question. Daniel gave Susan what? A new car. So a new car is the direct object. What do you think about these tips? It's easy to teach about direct object. So we have to consider these two tips. Okay. The next tips are about indirect object. The first tip is the indirect object answers the question to whom and for whom. And the second tip is indirect object usually comes before direct object. And I wanna say you that I like to teach English, but I like to teach grammar with formulas. So I think these tips are like formulas that English teachers can consider to teach about this interesting topic. So let's talk about examples about indirect object. For example is, my friend gave to his girlfriend a rose. What's the subject? The subject is my friend. What's the verb? Gave. And what's the question? The question will be, my friend gave to my friend gave to whom? And the answer is his girlfriend. So it is the indirect object. Next, Miss Costello gave to the students a lot of work. What's the subject? Miss Costello. What's the verb? Gave. And what's the answer of the question? Well, Miss Costello gave to whom? The answer is students. So students is the indirect object. And finally, Robert gave to the men some money. What's the subject? Robert. What's the verb? Gave. And what's the indirect object? Robert gave to the men. Robert gave to what? To whom? The answer is to the man. So this is the indirect object. Easy, really? And finally, we're going to talk about the oblique object. We can consider that the oblique object is similar to the indirect object. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is the prepositional phrase. The prepositional phrase would be phrases like at, in, on, by, for, etc. Some examples are: she is at work. What's the subject? She. What's the verb? Is. And what's the prepositional phrase? Where we can consider that at is a prepositional. You can see this part. So at work is the oblique object. The next is he was bitten by the dog. What's the subject? He. What's the verb? Was. And bitten. So what's the oblique object? We can see the prepositional phrase by. So by the dog will be the oblique object. And final, we have the sentence Rose is waiting for you. What's the subject? Rose. What's the verb? Is. And what's the prepositional phrase? For. So for you will be the oblique object. What do you think about these tips? I think these tips are easy to teach to our students. And don't forget to say that you students that you will use formulas to help them to understand more more effectively these them. I think this is an interesting topic and I hope these tips help you to teach to your students about this interesting topic. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching me and see you. Bye bye.